High Observer Zixtal's crystalline chamber hummed with the gentle resonance of quantum scanners, a sound that had remained unchanged for 3 centuries. The Galactic Concordat's most secure sector had known nothing but peace since the establishment of the detection grid, a network of sensors so advanced that even light itself couldn't pass unnoticed. Until today. High Observer, Junior Sentinel Kexri's voice wavered, their bioluminescent patches flashing urgent patterns of distress. We have an anomaly in Sector 7. Zixtal's upper eyes focused on the main display while their lower set continued monitoring the routine patrol reports. Specify anomaly type. Junior Sentinel. Unknown. High Observer. The quantum signatures. They don't match anything in our database. But Kexri's tentacles curled in agitation. We're detecting weapons. Many weapons. The chamber's ambient light shifted from its usual calming azure to a deep purple of heightened alert. Zixtal glided across the polished floor, their gravitational stabilizers humming as they approached the central holographic display. The image resolved into a vessel profile that sent ripples of confusion through their neural clusters. The ship was ugly by Concordat standards. All harsh angles and exposed armor plating where there should have been smooth, energy-efficient curves. Primitive radiological shielding wrapped around what appeared to be a modified antimatter core, and weapon hardpoints dotted its hull like pustules on a plague victim. But what caught Zixtal's attention wasn't the vessel's inelegant design. It was the impossible fact of its presence. Run a species origin scan, they commanded, all 4 eyes now fixed on the intruder. Kexri's appendages danced across the quantum interface. Scanning. Confirmed. High Observer, the vessel is of human origin. The chamber fell silent. Human. A species that had achieved their first faster-than-light flight barely 2 decades ago. A species still fighting among themselves over planetary resources. A species that should have found the detection grid an insurmountable barrier for centuries to come. Status of the grid. Zixtal demanded. Fully operational. High Observer. The vessel. It didn't breach the grid. It's as if it simply appeared within it. Zixtal's neural clusters pulsed with rapid calculations. Humans didn't possess quantum tunneling technology. Their fastest ships were crude devices that tore holes in spacetime with brute force, rather than elegant manipulation of quantum states. Yet here one was, deep in Concordat space, armed like a dreadnought of the ancient wars. Begin emergency protocol Nexus 7, Zixtal announced, their voice carrying the harmonic overtones of highest authority. Alert the defense fleet. Classify as Level 1 threat potential. The chamber erupted into activity. Warning signals cascaded through the quantum network, reaching the Concordat's most advanced warships. Within moments, the first response vessels began quantum shifting into position around the intruder. High Observer, Kexri called out, their voice carrying new notes of confusion. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessel. The weapon hardpoints. The readings don't align with any known combat systems. Zixtal moved closer to the display, their sensory tendrils extending to interface directly with the quantum data stream. The Junior Sentinel was right. Something was off about this warship. The energy patterns flowing through its systems were chaotic, inefficient, yet strangely purposeful. Where they expected to see the devastating simplicity of human nuclear weapons, they instead found complex power distribution networks. The missile bays appeared to be running thermal regulation systems more suited to biological containment than weapon storage. Update threat assessment. Zixtal commanded. Add anomaly classification to all parameters. And get me a direct channel to the War Council. They need to see this. As the defense fleet converged on the human vessel's position, Zixtal felt their neural clusters pulse with an unfamiliar sensation. Uncertainty. In 3 centuries of monitoring this sector, they had cataloged every known configuration of every known species ships. But this was something new, something that challenged every assumption the Concordat had made about humanity's capabilities. The alert klaxons continued their haunting melody through the crystalline chamber, but now they seemed to carry a different meaning. not a warning of impending violence, but perhaps a herald of change. The War Council chamber of the Concordat blazed with the combined bioluminescence of 30 agitated council members. Their bodies cast shifting shadows across the ancient quantum crystal walls as Admiral Vexthor, commander of the defense fleet, positioned 12 warships in an attack formation around the human vessel. Weapons primed, containment fields at maximum capacity, the Admiral announced, their chromatophores flashing patterns of tactical readiness, awaiting final authorization to. This is Commander Jack Morrison of the HMHS Mercy's Dawn. The human voice cut through the chamber's tactical displays with unexpected clarity. We are broadcasting on all frequencies. This is not an act of aggression. We request immediate emergency assistance. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Senior Counselor Ixvala's tentacles coiled in agitation. Emergency assistance. They'd breach our most secure sector with a warship, and they demand our help. High Observer Zixtal's neural clusters pulsed with analytical intensity. The human's voice shows no sign of stress harmonics. Either their species has mastered deception beyond our ability to detect, or they're telling the truth, finished War Minister Coltex, their crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the chamber's shifting lights. Which is more disturbing? On the main display, the human vessel hung motionless among the Concordat warships. Its primitive hull plating bore clear signs of recent modifications, patches of newer material grafted onto the old warship's frame with distinctly human pragmatism. Incoming visual transmission, announced Junior Sentinel Kexry. The chamber's holographic field shimmered, and Commander Morrison's image appeared before the council. The human stood straight-backed in what appeared to be a medical bay rather than a bridge, wearing a white uniform with red crosses that the Concordat's cultural database identified as symbols of healing. His gray-streaked hair and lined face spoke of age and experience by human standards. Honorable members of the Concordat, Morrison began, his tone carrying the weight of urgent purpose. We apologize for our unannounced arrival, but standard protocols would have taken too long. We've tracked an extremely aggressive pathogen to this sector, one that could devastate both our civilizations. Admiral Vexthor's biolights pulsed with skepticism. You expect us to believe your primitive sensors detected something our quantum arrays missed? With respect, Admiral, Morrison replied, surprising them with his recognition of Concordat rank markings. Sometimes older methods see what newer ones miss. We've lost 3 colony outposts to this thing already. The infection adapts faster than any natural disease we've encountered. The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed as they filtered the council members' stress pheromones. War Minister Coltex moved to the center of the chamber, their crystalline form catching the light. If what you say is true, why come in a warship? Why not send a proper medical vessel? A slight smile crossed Morrison's weathered face. The Mercy's Dawn is a medical vessel. She started life as the destroyer U.S. Horizon, but we've completely retrofitted her. Those weapon mounts you're tracking, they're running power to isolation wards and emergency treatment pods. The missile bays now house our pharmaceutical fabrication units. High Observer Zixtal's sensory tendrils extended in surprise. You converted a warship into a hospital ship. The power requirements alone would be met perfectly by the existing antimatter core, yes, Morrison finished. Sometimes the best tool for a new job is an old one repurposed. Right now, we've got 300 empty treatment beds and the most advanced adaptive medical eye humanity has ever developed. We can help each other, or we can waste time posturing while people die. Your choice, counselors. The council chamber fell silent save for the soft hum of quantum processors. The human's directness violated every protocol of interspatial diplomacy, yet carried a pragmatic logic that even the most conservative council members found difficult to dismiss. Senior Counselor Ixvala's voice carried the harmonics of grave decision. This is unprecedented. A vote is required. The consequences of allowing human medical technology into our space. Respectfully, Counselor, Morrison interrupted, his image flickering slightly. We detected signs of the pathogen in your outer colonies 12 hours ago. You don't have time for a vote. The Council's biolights dimmed in collective shock. They turned as one to High Observer Zixtal, whose neural clusters were already processing the quantum data feeds from the colonial sectors. He's right, Zixtal confirmed, all four eyes widening. We have confirmed infections in 3 systems. Our quarantine protocols are failing. The Concordat delegation materialized in the Mercy's Dawn's primary receiving bay, their crystalline forms refracting the stark medical lighting. War Minister Coltex led the group, accompanied by 2 xenobiologists and a quantum systems analyst. They found Commander Morrison waiting with his senior staff, all wearing the white and red uniforms of the Human Medical Corps. "Welcome aboard," Morrison said, gesturing to their surroundings. "I apologize for the unusual aesthetics. We had to work with what we had." The bay was a study in controlled chaos. What had clearly once been a warship's hangar deck now housed rows of advanced medical equipment. Pristine white panels covered most of the military-grade bulkheads, but occasional gaps revealed the ship's martial origins. "Fascinating," murmured Dr. Lexty, the senior xenobiologist, their sensory tendrils extending toward a nearby device. "You've adapted a plasma containment field for cellular isolation." Dr. Emily Blackwood, the ship's chief medical officer, nodded. "The principles aren't that different. Instead of containing superheated plasma, we're using it to maintain perfect sterile environments for cross-species treatment." War Minister Coltex's crystalline surface rippled with uncertainty. "Your people took a vessel designed for destruction and rebuilt it for healing. The energy requirements alone should have made this impossible." Morrison led them toward what had once been the ship's combat information center. "That's where we got creative. Lieutenant Rodriguez, show them the power distribution system." The young engineer pulled up a holographic display, notably cruder than Concordat technology, but effectively clear. The weapon systems on a destroyer are designed to channel massive energy bursts. We realized those same conduits could power medical equipment with minor modifications. The old point defense grid. Now it's a network of emergency power nodes for critical care units. But the precision required for medical applications, the quantum systems analysts' biolights pulsed with disbelief. "Your technology shouldn't be capable of." "Sometimes brute force has its advantages," Dr. Blackwood interrupted, bringing up medical telemetry on another screen. "We couldn't match your quantum precision, so we developed adaptive systems instead. Our medical computers constantly adjust power flow based on real-time feedback. Less elegant than your methods, but more flexible." They entered the former CIC, now transformed into a medical command center. Screens displayed patient data from across multiple species, while what had once been tactical displays now showed epidemic progression models. "Here's what we know," Morrison continued, activating the central holographic display. "The pathogen showed up in our Gamma Centauri colony 3 months ago. Killed 60% of the population before we contained it. Then it appeared in 2 more colonies, but different symptoms, different transmission vectors. It was learning." Dr. Lexty's tendrils coiled in agitation. "Impossible. No natural pathogen can adapt that quickly." "Exactly." Dr. Blackwood highlighted cellular structure diagrams. "That's what tipped us off. This thing isn't natural. It's engineered, and it's old. Really old. We found markers in its genetic structure that predate both our civilizations." The Concordat delegates clustered around the display, their combined bioluminescence casting eerie shadows through the holographic images. War Minister Coltex's surface had taken on the deep violet hue of grave concern. "The precursor civilization," they whispered. "You're suggesting this is their work?" Morrison nodded grimly. "We think it's why this ship was the right choice. The precursors built their bioweapons to adapt to any response, any treatment. You need something equally adaptable to fight it. Your quantum-perfect medical tech. It's too rigid. This thing just evolves around it." "But a hospital built from a warship," Dr. Lexty's voice carried unexpected appreciation. systems designed to react to unexpected threats, already programmed for rapid response. Exactly, Dr. Blackwood confirmed. We've got treatment pods adapted from torpedo tubes. They can reconfigure their internal environment in seconds. The old electronic warfare suite now runs viral mutation predictions. Even the point defense targeting computers have been reprogrammed to track infection vectors through populations. War Minister Coltex moved to the center of the room, their crystalline form catching the light in fractals of decision. You took the tools of war and turned them towards saving lives. Why? Your species is known for its martial prowess, not its healing arts. Morrison's weathered face showed a slight smile. Maybe you've been looking at us wrong, Minister. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to adapt, to take what we have and make it into what we need. Right now, what we all need is a cure. Dr. Emily Blackwood stood before the quantum display in the Mercy's Dawn's converted medical bay, watching as red warning indicators spread across the map of Concordat space like a bloodstain. Beside her, the crystalline form of Dr. Lexty pulsed with distress harmonics as they processed the latest data. 3 more colony clusters reporting infections. The xenobiologist announced, their bioluminescent patches dimming. Our quantum-guided treatment protocols are failing. The pathogen adapts faster than our systems can compute optimal responses. Show me the mutation patterns, Blackwood requested, her fingers dancing across the hybrid interface they'd cobbled together from human and Concordat technology. The display shifted, revealing microscopic views of the pathogen's evolution. There, she pointed, highlighting the sequence. Your medical AI is trying to achieve perfect solutions, but that's exactly what the pathogen expects. It's using your precision against you. Commander Morrison entered the medical bay, accompanied by War Minister Coltex. The minister's crystalline surface had taken on a clouded appearance, a sign of deep concern in their species. 17,000 cases reported in the outer colonies, Coltex announced. Our quarantine measures are proving ineffective. The pathogen simply adapts around them. Blackwood nodded, pulling up a comparison display. Look at these infection patterns. They're not random. The pathogen is learning from each containment attempt, using the Concordat's own medical responses as a blueprint for its next mutation. Impossible, Dr. Lexty protested, their tendrils coiling in agitation. Our medical systems are perfect. They account for every possible variable. That's the problem, Morrison interrupted, stepping closer to the display. Your systems are too perfect, too predictable. Lieutenant Rodriguez, show them the simulation. The young engineer activated a nearby console, and a new hologram sprang to life. It showed 2 treatment approaches, the Concordat's precise, optimized response, and the seemingly chaotic human method. Our medical eye doesn't look for perfect solutions, Rodriguez explained. It's built on centuries of dealing with constantly evolving diseases. It tries random approaches, learns from failures, adapts its methods mid-treatment. Messy, but flexible. Dr. Blackwood highlighted a particular data set. Watch what happens when we introduce controlled chaos into the treatment protocols. The simulation showed the pathogen's adaptation rate slowing dramatically when faced with the human approach. Your quantum-perfect medical technology is like a fortress with unbreakable walls, she continued. But this thing doesn't try to break walls. It flows around them. Our approach is more like guerrilla warfare against the infection. Hit it from unexpected angles. Keep it off balance. War Minister Coltex's surface rippled with realization. You're suggesting we deliberately introduce imperfection into our medical systems. The Council will never. An emergency alert cut through the discussion. Junior Sentinel Kexry's voice carried barely controlled panic. Minister, we've lost contact with the Crystalline Heights colony. Complete communication blackout. The room fell silent. Crystalline Heights was one of the Concordat's most advanced medical research facilities. How many inhabitants? Morrison asked quietly. 30,000, Coltex replied, their voice carrying harmonic overtones of grief. Our most brilliant medical minds. Dr. Blackwood was already moving, her fingers flying across multiple interfaces. Rodriguez, reconfigure treatment pods 3 through 12 for Concordat physiology. Dr. Lex T, I need everything you have on crystalline species cellular structure. We're going to try something unorthodox. What do you propose? Coltex asked, watching as the human medical team burst into coordinated activity. We're going to take the medical nanites from your systems and introduce random variables into their programming. Controlled mutations of our own, Blackwood explained. Then we'll link them to our adaptive AI. Not perfect, not predictable, but maybe just chaotic enough to catch this thing off guard. Morrison nodded grimly. Sometimes the best way to fight an adaptive enemy is to become equally unpredictable. Minister, we'll need authorization to access your medical databases. And fair warning, what we're about to do will probably violate at least a dozen of your medical protocols. War Minister Coltex's surface shifted through several colors before settling on a deep, determined blue. At this point, Doctor, I believe adherence to protocol is a luxury we can no longer afford. Teach us your chaos. Administrator Valthek's holographic form towered over the Concordat emergency session, their crystalline structure pulsing with waves of deep crimson disapproval. You suggest we allow these primitives to contaminate our perfect medical systems with their chaos. This is heresy against all technological progress. The chamber's quantum displays showed the spreading infection in real time. 23 colonies now, with 6 in complete communication blackout. Yet the Purity Council, led by Valthek, remained unmoved. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez watched from the Mercy's Dawn's communication center, his hands clenched as the Concordat politicians argued while people died. Commander Morrison, permission to proceed with the Sigma Protocol. Morrison studied the tactical display, now repurposed to track infection vectors. You understand the risks. If we're caught, with respect, sir, Rodriguez interrupted, bringing up the retrofit schematics for their emergency deployment pods. We didn't convert this destroyer into a hospital ship to sit and watch people die because of politics. In the background, Dr. Blackwood's medical team worked frantically, preparing emergency treatment modules that had once been survival pods for ship-to-ship combat. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Do it, Morrison nodded, but keep our official channels clear. The Mercy's Dawn stays right here, playing nice with the politicians. Rodriguez's team moved with practiced efficiency, their movements reflecting countless drills. Within minutes, 5 emergency medical shuttles, converted fighter craft stripped of weapons and packed with treatment supplies, slipped away from the Mercy's Dawn's shadow. Unusual energy signatures detected. The alert came from Junior Sentinel Kexry Station. The human vessel is running standard medical diagnostics. Dr. Lexi interrupted smoothly, their tendrils weaving patterns of scientific authority. These humans have rather power-intensive treatment protocols. War Minister Coltex's surface rippled with what might have been amusement, but they said nothing as the shuttles vanished into quantum space. Hours later, in the crystalline spires of New Haven Colony, Medical Officer Sarah Chen, part of Rodriguez's team, faced down a squad of Concordat security forces. Behind her, hundreds of infected colonists filled makeshift treatment pods, their crystalline forms clouded with disease. This is an unauthorized human intrusion, the security chief announced, weapon systems humming. You will cease all medical activities and your people are dying. Chen cut in, not moving from her position between the guards and her patients. In the time you've spent trying to arrest us, we've stabilized 53 critical cases. Want to check their vitals? The security chief hesitated, their surface flickering between enforcement protocols and the obvious evidence before them. In the treatment zones, crystalline colonists were already showing signs of recovery, their surfaces clearing as the hybrid human Concordat treatment protocols fought back against the infection. Back on the Mercy's Dawn, Morrison received the first encrypted success reports. Treatment protocols exceeding expectations at New Haven, sir. Adaptation rate dropping. We're actually getting ahead of the mutations. Administrator Valthek. Dr. Blackwood addressed the still-raging hologram in the council chamber. While you've been arguing, we've been healing. Your people are recovering. Check your own medical data. The infection rates are dropping in every colony we've reached. Valthek's form pulsed with barely contained fury. You dare to act without authority. To contaminate our pure methods with your primitive. Enough. War Minister Coltex's voice cut through the chamber like a quantum blade. I've just received word from the Security Council. The human treatments are working. Not just working. Succeeding where our perfect systems failed. The question before us is no longer whether to accept their help, but how quickly we can implement their protocols across all affected colonies. In the converted CIC of the Mercy's dawn, Morrison watched as green indicators began replacing red across the tactical display. Each one represented lives saved, bridges built between civilizations. Sir, Rodriguez's voice came through on a secure channel. New Haven security forces are now requesting our help to reach outlying settlements. They're offering to escort us. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. Remind our teams, we're not here to prove ourselves right. We're here to heal. The rest will follow. Dr. Lexty, monitoring the recovery data, turned their crystalline form toward the human commander. You knew the Purity Council would resist. You planned for this. We planned to save lives, Morrison corrected. Everything else is just politics. Sometimes the best way to change minds is to show rather than tell. The converted cargo bay of the Mercy's dawn hummed with the combined energy of human and Concordat technology. Dr. Emily Blackwood stood before a hybrid analysis station, her eyes fixed on genetic sequences that scrolled past, while Dr. Lexty's crystalline form pulsed with increasing excitement beside her. There, Blackwood pointed, freezing the display. That pattern keeps appearing in every variant we've tracked. It's not random mutation. It's program behavior. Impossible, breathed Dr. Lexty, their tendrils weaving complex patterns of scientific fascination. These base sequences, they're written in precursor script. The discovery sent ripples through both human and Concordat scientific teams gathered in the bay. The precursors, a civilization so advanced they had vanished before humanity's first cities rose, had left their mark across the galaxy. But this was different. Not just any script. Lieutenant Rodriguez added, pulling up comparison data on a nearby screen. These are command protocols. The pathogen isn't just evolving. It's following ancient instructions. Commander Morrison entered the cargo bay with War Minister Coltex, both studying reports from the latest outbreak zones. Can we use this? Find a way to shut down these commands. Better, Blackwood replied, her fingers dancing across the interface. Look at this structural analysis. The precursors built this thing to adapt to perfect, predictable responses. Your quantum-precise medical systems were exactly what it was designed to overcome. Dr. Lexty's surface rippled with understanding. But human medical techniques are messy, unpredictable, and exactly what this weapon never expected to face. Blackwood finished. We don't need to shut down the commands. We need to confuse them. The cargo bay erupted into activity as both species' medical teams began working in perfect synchronization. Concordat quantum computers processed vast amounts of genetic data, while human adaptive algorithms introduced controlled chaos into the analysis. Here's what we know, Rodriguez explained to the gathered teams. The pathogen was designed to attack species that achieved a certain level of medical technology. Once they developed perfectly predictable treatment protocols, it would activate, Morrison concluded grimly. A time bomb left by the precursors, waiting for civilizations to advance enough to trigger it. But why? War Minister Coltex asked, their crystalline surface clouded with concern. What purpose could such a weapon serve? Blackwood looked up from her analysis. Testing, maybe, or pruning. Advanced civilizations would develop perfect, predictable medical responses. But species that maintained adaptability, that kept their primitive ability to try unexpected solutions, would survive, Dr. Lexty finished. a test of evolutionary fitness disguised as a plague. The implications hung heavy in the air, but there was no time to dwell on them. The combined medical team worked through the night, human intuition and creativity, merging with Concordat precision to forge something entirely new. "We've got it," Blackwood announced as dawn approached. "A treatment protocol that mimics natural evolution, unpredictable enough to confuse the precursor commands, but controlled enough to guarantee recovery." The test results flowed across multiple screens, infection rates dropping, cellular regeneration beginning, the pathogen's adaptation protocols thrown into chaos by treatment methods it couldn't predict or counter. "The hard part will be production," Rodriguez noted, studying the manufacturing requirements. "We need to combine Concordat quantum fabrication with human adaptive systems. Your facilities aren't designed for." "We've already begun the modifications," War Minister Coltex interrupted, their surface glowing with determination. "Every medical center in Concordat space is being upgraded with hybrid human Concordat technology." The Purity Council objected, of course. "And?" Morrison asked, raising an eyebrow. "And they were reminded that purity is meaningless if one civilization does not survive to maintain it," Coltex replied, a hint of satisfaction in their harmonic overtones. Dr. Blackwood initiated the first full-scale production run, watching as the Mercy's Dawn's converted missile fabricators began producing treatment modules. Sometimes the best solutions come from combining the old and the new, the perfect and the imperfect. "Perhaps," Dr. Lexty observed, their tendrils weaving thoughtful patterns. "That was the true test the precursors left behind. Not whether we could achieve perfection, but whether we could learn to embrace imperfection when needed." The cargo bay's screens filled with green confirmation indicators as the first batch of hybrid cure modules rolled out of production. In the end, it wasn't either civilization's technology alone that had solved the crisis. It was their willingness to learn from each other, to combine precision with adaptation, perfection with flexibility. Multiple quantum signatures detected. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through the controlled chaos of the Mercy's Dawn's medical bay. Purity Council vessels dropping out of quantum space, their charging weapons. Commander Morrison's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display, now showing 8 Concordat warships surrounding them. Their sleek crystalline hulls glowed with combat energy, a stark contrast to the converted destroyer's utilitarian profile. "They're targeting our medical fabrication units," Dr. Blackwood reported, her hands flying across the hybrid interface. "We've got 10,000 treatment modules in production." "If they hit us, no." "They won't," Morrison interrupted, his voice carrying the calm of a veteran commander. "Rodriguez, initiate Defense Protocol Echo." "Dr. Blackwood, how long until the current production run is complete?" 17 minutes, she replied, already moving to secure the sensitive medical equipment. Administrator Valthek's holographic form materialized in the command center, pulsing with righteous fury. "Your corruption of our perfect systems ends now. Surrender your vessel and all medical data, or we will be forced to." "Contact in 3 minutes," Rodriguez announced, ignoring the administrator's threats. Around him, the bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, but instead of manning weapon stations, they were activating modified medical systems. "Last chance, Commander," Valthek warned. "Your primitive vessel cannot hope to." Morrison cut the transmission with a gesture. "Execute Defense Protocol Echo. Remember, no casualties. These are still the people we came to help." The Purity Council fleet opened fire, quantum-enhanced energy beams streaking toward the Mercy's Dawn. But where they expected to find a defenseless hospital ship, they encountered something entirely different. The destroyer's old point defense grid, modified for precision medical scanning, reversed its field. Concentrated bursts of sanitizing radiation, normally used to sterilize treatment areas, flared out in perfectly calculated pulses. The attacking ship's energy weapons scattered, their quantum-perfect targeting systems confused by the seemingly random patterns. "Their targeting systems are calibrated for combat," Rodriguez explained, allowing himself a small grin. They can't get a lock on medical equipment they don't recognize as weapons. A second volley from the Purity Council fleet met an even stranger defense. The Mercy's Dawn's external decontamination systems, designed to prevent cross-species contamination, released clouds of modified anesthetic gas. The crystalline ship's quantum sensors, trying to analyze the unexpected substance, fell into momentary confusion. "Warning shots incoming," Morrison announced. "Dr. Blackwood, show them why we kept some of the old targeting systems. The former destroyer's surgical lasers, originally designed for precision strikes, but modified for medical procedures, activated. With pinpoint accuracy, they struck the attacking vessel's weapon arrays, not to destroy but to temporarily overload their crystalline focusing mechanisms." "Impressive." War Minister Coltex's voice came through a secure channel. "You've transformed medical equipment into defensive systems without compromising their original purpose." "Sometimes the best defense is a good medical protocol," Morrison replied, watching as another attack dissipated harmlessly against their sanitizing fields. "We're not here to fight. Every system we're using is still saving lives, just in a different way." Valthek's fleet pressed their attack, but found themselves increasingly tangled in the Mercy's Dawn's web of repurposed medical technology. Quarantine fields deflected quantum torpedoes. Diagnostic scanners confused targeting systems. Even the ship's biological containment protocols proved effective at neutralizing crystalline weapon systems. "Production run complete," Dr. Blackwood announced. "All treatment modules safely manufactured." "Now for the finishing touch," Morrison nodded to Rodriguez. "Show them what that destroyer core is really good for." The lieutenant activated their final surprise. The Mercy's Dawn's antimatter core, which had been providing power for medical equipment, surged. But instead of weapons fire, it generated a massive quantum healing field, the kind used for treating multiple patients simultaneously. The attacking ship's crystalline hulls, stressed by their own weapon discharges, began to regenerate and stabilize under the unexpected therapeutic bombardment. Their combat systems, interpreting the healing energy as neither attack nor defense, fell into confused standby modes. What is this?" Valthek demanded, their holographic form flickering with uncertainty. "This," Morrison replied calmly, "is a hospital ship doing its job. We could have destroyed your vessels with conventional weapons. Instead, we're repairing the microfractures in your crystalline matrices caused by repeated quantum weapon discharge. Because that's what we do. We heal." The battle, if it could be called that, ended not with destruction but with confusion turning to understanding. The Purity Council fleet hung in space, their weapons powered down, as their crews experienced firsthand the efficiency of human medical innovation. "Sometimes," Dr. Blackwood observed, checking the readings from their impromptu treatment of the attacking ships, "the best way to win a fight is to refuse to have one at all." The grand chamber of the Concordat High Council gleamed with crystalline light as Commander Morrison stood before the assembled delegates. 3 months had passed since the Mercy's Dawn first breached their sector, and the chamber itself had changed. Hybrid human Concordat medical scanners now complemented the ancient quantum arrays. "The final recovery reports are in," Dr. Lexty announced, their form pulsing with pride. "All infected colonies have been cleared of the precursor pathogen. The adaptive treatment protocols have proven 100% effective." High Observer Zixtel's neural clusters pulsed with thoughtful energy. "When we first detected your vessel, Commander, we saw only a primitive warship. We could not have been more wrong, or learned a more valuable lesson." The chamber's holographic displays showed the Mercy's Dawn's journey through Concordat space. First as an intruder, then as a healer, and finally as a bridge between civilizations. Alongside it, dozens of similar vessels now patrolled the sectors. Former human warships converted into hospital ships using the Mercy's Dawn's blueprints. "The precursor test," War Minister Coltex observed, their crystalline surface catching the light, was more profound than we realized. It wasn't merely about surviving a biological weapon. It was about understanding that true advancement isn't always about achieving perfection. Morrison nodded, gesturing to Dr. Blackwood, who stood beside him with Lieutenant Rodriguez. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. Our history is full of attempts to achieve perfection, only to find that adaptability serves better in the end. Every war taught us to heal. Every weapon showed us a new way to save lives. The chamber's displays shifted to show the newly established medical exchange program. Human doctors worked alongside Concordat healers, each learning from the other's approach. Former weapon facilities now produced hybrid medical equipment, combining quantum precision with human adaptability. "Your vessel," Administrator Valthek spoke up, their once hostile tone now carrying notes of revelation. "It was never truly a warship, was it? Even with its original weapons, it was an expression of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to transform tools of destruction into instruments of healing." "Every civilization faces a choice," Dr. Blackwood replied, bringing up images of the hybrid medical technologies they'd developed together. "Perfect your existing tools, or learn to use them in new ways. The precursors tested us not on our advancement, but on our wisdom in applying it." The council chamber hummed with harmonious agreement as War Minister Coltex moved to the center. "We have prepared a formal declaration. From this day forward, human medical vessels will have full access to all Concordat space. Furthermore, we propose establishing a joint medical response fleet, crewed by both our peoples." Morrison smiled, remembering the tense standoff of their first arrival, and the Purity Council's objections. "Have been noted," Coltex replied, their surface rippling with what might have been amusement, and overruled by practical results. "It's difficult to argue for isolation when your own ship has been healed by the methods you oppose." The chamber's displays showed the latest design, a new class of medical vessel that combined Concordat quantum engineering with human adaptability from the ground up. Not a converted warship, but something entirely new, a symbol of both civilizations' commitment to healing rather than harm. "In our archives," High Observer Zixtal announced, "we found an ancient human saying, 'The best warrior is the one who never needs to fight.' We misunderstood its meaning until now. Your people didn't master war, Commander Morrison. You mastered the wisdom of knowing when not to use it." Dr. Blackwood stepped forward, presenting the final data from their mission. "The precursor pathogen is neutralized, but its lesson remains. No single approach, perfect or adaptive, is enough alone. It's in combining our different paths that we find the strongest solutions." "A new chapter begins," Morrison concluded, looking out at the assembled council. "Not as perfect beings, not as warriors, but as healers who understand that every tool, every technology, every discovery carries the same choice: to harm or to heal. We choose to heal." The chamber's crystalline walls caught the light of 1,000 stars, each one now shining on a space where two very different civilizations had learned to see strength in their differences, wisdom in their imperfections, and hope in their shared commitment to preservation over destruction. In the Mercy's Dawns Memorial Hall, beneath the newly installed quantum crystal displays, a simple plaque told their story in both human and Concordat script. "From the forge of war, we crafted healing. From our differences, we forged understanding. In imperfection, we found our perfect purpose."